So is it Allan or Coach Allan? Which do you like to go by?
You can just call me Alan.
Allan. Well, Allan, thanks for being here. You're in like sunny Panama, right?
Well, I live on an island, Caribbean island off the coast of Panama. It's a Caribbean island that doesn't get hurricanes. I'm in North Carolina right now as we record this. I've got some family stuff I'm doing. I'm actually going to be a first time grandpa at August 1st. So I'm in the
Nice.
States. My wife will be up here soon, and we'll head over to my daughter and see Cruz, my new grandson, probably the first week of August.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank
Uh,
you.
well, first of all, 40 plus fitness. You don't look old enough to be a grandpa, so you're doing something right with 40 plus
Well,
fitness.
I'm 59 actually, so I'm
That's
way over 40. But yeah, the interesting thing is, I know we're going to get a little bit into my story, but when I was 39, I felt like I was 69.
wow.
I'm 59, and I feel like I'm 39.
I love that. I would love that to be my story because I gotta tell you, there are elements and shades of truth to that in my own life. So we'll kind of get into your ethos and how you did that. But I would love to hear, first of all, what is it that drove you to being this guy with this platform, this idea of 40 plus fitness, and just a guy who like lives his best life in what sounds like one of the most amazing places on the planet.
Well, okay, so kind of my story starts a little bit here with working my way in corporate, doing the things you're supposed to do. I'm vice president of a Fortune 5, C-suite executive of a Fortune 500 company at the age of 39. I'm all over the place. My career is going great, but I'm miserable.
Mm.
I am completely miserable, and I got really miserable on vacation. So I had not taken a vacation in like 3 years. So I forced myself to take a vacation. Went down to Mexico and literally walked right into the sales office to buy the timeshare. I was like, I need something that's going to make me take vacations because I haven't taken one in 3 years. And so I went in, I bought the timeshare, and I was excited because I walked out, I saw on the beach, they had the sign of the activities, and they had volleyball 11 o'clock in the morning every day. And I'm like, sand volleyball. I'm like, this is great. I'm going to play some sand volleyball tomorrow. I'm going to feel good. This is going to be great. And I went out there, and I barely made it through the first game. And I quite literally sat over there on the side, and I thought, I'm going to have to get them to call an ambulance because I don't think I'm going to be okay. So I barely made it through one game. And so I was, needless to say, quite disappointed in myself. And the inner voice, the dialogue, the things that you say about yourself when you're obese, you're unfit, and you're miserable. It was not a good scene. So I made up my mind I was gonna change everything. I'm gonna change everything.
You never had like a moment before that, like where you felt like I want to turn this around. It was that moment, maybe the scare of needing to go to a hospital in Mexico, or like, did you never had another moment like
Not a
that?
whole lot, not a whole lot, but it was kind of one of those things where I had just kind of drifted. Everywhere else in my life had just drifted along, and I was so focused on the career, and I was so successful in the career that it just nothing else really seemed to matter to me. But here was what was interesting. I was in an all-inclusive resort, so I of course didn't start then.
Yeah, right. I mean, you already paid for it, so
Yeah, so alcohol is not going to drink itself, and so I got back, and I tried, and I could tell you a thousand stories of trying and failing, losing 20 pounds and gaining 30 back,
yeah.
over and back and over and back and over and back, and I literally found myself 8 years later in worse shape than I was then.
Mhm.
And I had not had a picture of myself in those 8 years. I would not be in a picture. And so I had the picture from when I was on that beach that morning. That's the last picture I ever had taken. I had my shirt off and I said, I'm going to fix this. And I had a picture taken. So that's the only picture I have to compare to, anything after. But
so this lands you at 40, 48. Is that how old you were at this time?
I was about 46,
46. Okay.
47. Yeah, somewhere around that range. And what happened was I was actually, this time I was in Malaysia, and I was talking on the phone with my daughter, and she said she started getting into CrossFit. She was a level 1 CrossFit coach. I was really excited for her because she was doing the stuff I did when I was her age, And I remember saying this to me.
So when you were a younger guy, you were like a fitness guy.
I was super fit. Yeah, I was in the Ranger unit in the Army and was just like super fit. 4-star athlete in high school. Always like super into fitness and super strong all the way up until my late 20s, and then I got busy in my career, and it didn't take. It was a decade, 1 decade, and boom, here I am, obese and terrible.
Nothing will destroy your soul and your ability to properly care for yourself, like living in the corporate world.
Yeah, well, you're okay. You travel somewhere and you're in a hotel. You've been working. You worked a 16-hour day.
Yeah.
And so you go back to the hotel and you're like, okay, I don't want to just sit in my room and order a room service and eat that and then go to bed. I'm going to go sit at the bar. And then, of course, I'm going to have a beer. And I'll drink the beer and then I'll order what's on the menu, and it's pub food. So you're eating that. The second beer, even before the food comes out, third beer with the food, maybe a fourth or fifth beer. And then you go to bed and you don't do anything but that. And you're traveling from city to city. And so my daughter was talking on my phone with my daughter, and she said, Daddy, would you come watch me do a CrossFit competition? And that was a kick in the gut. It's just this kick. And I was like, wait, that's not the dad I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be a spectator. I'm supposed to be a participant in her life. And she should be able to ask me, Dad, would you come do this CrossFit competition with me? That's the question I wanted her to ask. Yeah. Now, I wouldn't have been able, where I was, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But that was kind of the kick in the teeth, that moment where I realized, okay, it is now or never, because if I don't turn this around now, I'll never be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so I did. I started working out, started doing the right things. But the problem I had was there were no resources, like none. If you look for books back then for people over 40, it was chair yoga and stretching.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So you were either training like Arnold Schwarzenegger or you were doing chair yoga. That was your 2 options, right? CrossFit was big, so there was a lot of CrossFit stuff. And then you look
on an unrelated matter, can you send me a link to these chair yoga? Just kidding.
It's on Amazon. Just search chair yoga. Find a book.
Just search. I've completely given up.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, there's no books, and I listen to podcasts all the time, and you probably had listened to some of these as well. They were basically keto podcasts and vegan podcasts, and then CrossFit podcasts. There was no one talking about how do you do this when you're over 40. And I'm like, I can't do the stuff. I can't, like the CrossFit stuff and the Beachbody stuff. I can't do that right now because my body won't let me. And like I said, I have all the stories of where I did stupid stuff trying to get myself fit again, forgetting I was not a 29-year-old athlete. And, but I just knew that wouldn't work. So what I did was I said, I can't hire a trainer because I'm traveling 90% of the time. And for folks that haven't traveled, kind of give you an idea of what 90% travel means. It means I'm home 1 weekend a month.
Wow.
Okay. You can't hire a personal trainer or anybody to help you when you're traveling like that.
No.
So I said, okay, well, what do I do? And I thought, well, I have to be my own trainer. And I obviously don't know what I'm doing. So I've got to go get an education. So
can I just pause and ask, so you mentioned that you had a whole bunch of stuff that you tried thinking you were a 29-year-old athlete again, kind of like that mentality never leaves, but your body's like reminding you. What were some of those things that you did that you felt like you jumped in and it was too much?
Okay. So I'm sitting on my couch watching TV on a Sunday morning, and an infomercial came up. I think they still do infomercial. I don't know, but I haven't been in the States in 6 years, so I don't know what they do on Sunday mornings anymore. But they used to have infomercials on before they would have the kind of the talk news stuff. So I'm sitting there, and there's an infomercial, and all these guys come out, and there's Shaun T, and they're all not wearing shirts, and they all look fit and great. Some of them are older, and they're bouncing around, and they're getting the work done, and they all look great, and they look happy. And I'm like, that's it. I don't have to have equipment. I can do that in my hotel room if I wanted to.
This is like the P90X or
This was the insanity. And so I ordered
aptly named.
Yeah, I ordered
insanity, parentheses, if you're over 40.
Yes. I order the discs. That's all, this is a while ago. Order the DVDs. I get the DVDs. I have my iPad from work. I rip all of those DVDs onto that iPad. So I have them all to carry with me. Now I'm ready. And so I sat there on that Sunday. Now I was flying out again on Tuesday. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the benchmark workout today, just so I know where I stand. So I put that on, and I'm playing that video, and I go do the workout, and I push myself because he's inspiring. Shaun T is just a very inspiring human being, and you want to work hard for him, even though you know he can't see you and doesn't know you and doesn't care, probably doesn't care. He's infectious. He's a wonderful man if you want to be motivated. So he did motivate me, and I thank him for that. And then I hate him and spite him for that, because the next morning I woke up and it felt like people had been beating me with baseball bats all night. I hurt everywhere. It hurt to reach over and just get my phone because I had to call off of work.
Oh no. And you had a trip?
A trip the next day. So I'm like, God, I hope I can get past this. What I was suffering from was a thing called DOMS. It's delayed onset muscle sore. I knew exactly what it was because I trained before, so I knew what I had done. I had overdone it, and my body was in trauma, and I was feeling it everywhere, and I couldn't move, but I needed to move because that's a part of it. And so I'm like, okay, I need to get up and move around regularly throughout this Monday day so I can catch my flight on Tuesday. And I'm moving around and I'm doing my things, but it's like I wrecked myself. Now, there's another time when I got serious about it. I was in Malaysia, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get serious. I'm here. It's during their Ramadan. So it'd be very easy for me to just be a little bit more restrictive with food. I'll have a breakfast and I'll have a dinner to kind of correspond with their fasting windows. And I'll just drink water. I won't drink the alcohol because I'm in the restaurants. And if they're in the restaurants, they're not drinking alcohol. So I'm like, okay, this is the time. They're in Ramadan. So I go through that whole week, and I get up in the mornings and I start walking. Very hot and humid in Malaysia. So I'm sweating and I'm walking and I'm drinking water. Go through that whole week. I feel like I'm starting to get some kind of ground. Get on an airplane, fly home, again, drinking water, get up on Monday, go to work, and collapse.
Wow.
I convulsed, I threw up, I pooped myself all at the same time.
Oh, fun. At work?
At work.
Oh, fun.
In a suit. And so I get up off the floor, and it's a mess. And all the people in my work area, I have my office. They'll come to the office and they see me and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just got sick." I'm cleaning it all up. They're like, let's call the ambulance. I'm like, "No, I'm just going to go home and I'm going to rest for a bit. If I still feel ill later, I will definitely go to the hospital."
What a typical male response.
It was.
I passed out, I convulsed, I had a medic event, and I refused an ambulance.
Yes. Again, that's the mindset. So I go home and I actually go to sleep, and then I wake up about 3 or 4 hours later, and my chest hurts. and I'm just exhausted. And so I'm like, I have to go to the hospital. So I took myself to the hospital, and I can tell you, if you're over 40 years old and you walk into an emergency room and tell them your chest hurts, you don't wait. There's no wait. So if you want to avoid the wait when you go there, just tell them your chest hurts a little bit. You'll get straight back there. So they popped the nitroglycerin. They had me on the EKG. They took some blood. About an hour or so in, they put me on an IV. So about an hour or so in, the nurse comes in and says, okay, so here's what your situation is. You have flushed the sodium and potassium out of your body. You're extremely low, and you're also dehydrated. They're like, it's a terrible cycle to be in, because the answer to the dehydration is to drink more water, but drinking more water will flush more of this out of your system. And you're about one little tick on this chart going into a coma.
Wow.
So they call it water poisoning is a simple thing, but basically it's where all the sodium leaves your body. You can't retain any water. So yeah, you get dehydrated. So my sodium runs, I didn't know this then, but my sodium runs very low. So all the sweating and not replacing, because again, you're eating healthy, you don't need salt. I need salt. And
turns out it's a necessary element.
And we need salt, or we don't do too well. And so particularly for me, I run low all the time now. And I know that. I've had blood tests since, and I'm right at the bottom, low, very low, regular, and then I'm right there on that line. The line.
So do you supplement with like electrolytes, or like how do you manage that?
I salt my food. It's delicious. But so I just have to be cognizant of it. So that was their deal, is like they let me leave the emergency room, and they said, okay, what you want to do is go get some Gatorade. I'm in the grocery store and I'm looking at Gatorade. I'm like, there's not a ton of sodium in Gatorade. I'm like, let's look over here at this spicy V8. Lots of sodium. So I drank a spicy V8, and then I went in and got tested the next morning. I was still low. So they did another IV, because that's just saline water. And so they did another IV, and that kind of got me back up. But it's just those kind of things of realizing. So when I realized I didn't know how to train myself properly, I knew I needed some guidance, and I couldn't find a coach. So I went and got certified to be a coach for myself. And as I learned what I didn't know, because that's the other side of when you start learning things, you learn all the things you don't know. And now I got to learn those things. And so I continued the process. And while I was learning, I was applying. So this was a great way to learn, because if you're trying to learn something, don't just sit and read and take the test. Actually apply what you're learning. So I was doing that. And what happened over 11 months was I managed to lose 66 pounds of fat and gain 11 pounds of muscle.
Wow. What just to pause you right there, because that's obviously, those are tremendous results at that age where you, maybe you said this, but what age were you around?
I would have been about 47.
47 years old. So at about 47 years old, you're able to take off 60 plus pounds in a pretty short amount of time, build muscle. What did your regimen look like? What did that, just day to day, how much effort did that take?
Well, it wasn't that it was a ton of effort. I don't think I ever worked out more than maybe 5 hours a week. Towards the end I did, but that was only because as I learned about myself, because I think this is the biggest holdup, is most of us don't actually pay attention to who we are. We don't pay attention to our own wiring. Okay. And so one of the things I noticed early on was I look back at who I was and forget that I'm not that person anymore. That's a mistake. So once I fixed that mistake, I was like, okay, now, and then I started making other mistakes. Like, why am I making this mistake? So
can you camp out on that a little bit? I'm intrigued by what you're saying.
Okay.
So when you say when I look back, I have to realize that I'm not that same person. What do you mean?
Okay. I was not the 29-year-old athlete that could run a marathon without training.
So you had physical limitations.
Yes.
47 that you didn't have with that lingering mentality of
Right.
okay.
And that's why, again, that's why the insanity moment happened. That's why the collapse happened. Those were moments where I forgot that I'm mortal. I'm not the immortal guy I was when I was 29 years old. And so once I got past that mindset, I actually call that the windshield mindset, where you're looking back at the rearview mirror instead of realizing the seat you're sitting in and looking out the windshield. But once I did that, okay, this is where I am, and there's my windshield. I was able to get past that. The next one I struggled with was if I didn't follow through with something I wanted to do, then I would stop. So this was what I call a tires. If I lost traction, so it'd be a thing like you just, I screwed up. I screwed up on Friday. My Friday night, I had some beers I shouldn't have had, and so I wake up Sunday, I skip my workout. I have a few beers watching the football game. And then now, here I am Saturday night, here I'm Sunday, and I may start on Monday or I may not. And so I knew I needed some traction. And so that's why I call it the tires. And so certain people need the gamification of a streak. They need to know, okay, it's more important for me to get one on the calendar than it is for me to worry about the one that I didn't get. And so I started working on the consistency. Once I started getting the consistency going, I came across another roadblock in my mindset. And that was, if I don't have a direction, it's really hard for me to push myself. So I do the basic stuff. If you say, okay, just do this basic stuff, I can do that. But if I really want to make substantial change in my life, I have to have a big, scary goal in front of me. So one of the things I did, which I had no business doing, was I was still significantly overweight and out of shape. But I told my daughter, my level 1 CrossFit daughter, I said, hey, how about we do a Tough Mudder? For those that aren't in the know.
Now, how does that line up with the 29-year-old mentality and shifting? Like,
okay, the 29-year-old would have said, next weekend there's a Tough Mudder. Do you want to do it? This one was 8 months out.
Okay, so this is something I can build to.
Yes, this was definitely a build to moment.
And was the goal to complete it within a certain time, or was the goal to just be able to do it and complete it?
The goal was to do it with my daughter at a pace that she wanted to do it. Because I want to be a participant. Remember the concept I said, I want to be a participant and not a spectator.
Yeah.
So I didn't want her waiting on me. I didn't want to be sending her off and say, no, you go ahead and finish and I'll catch up. I'll finish later. This was one of those things where I said, no, I want to run at a pace that she's comfortable and she feels good about. And so it was that fundamental drive of the very hard thing in front of you. And so what it meant was, okay, the consistency's there, and now there has to be progression. And so that put me on a path. And again, remember, by this time, I finished some certifications. I knew a lot more about the human body and recovery, nutrition, all those different things. So when I went at it this time, I had a professional trainer, me.
Yeah.
And so I was able to know how to get proper nutrition, how to get proper recovery for my body, and then to do just enough work each workout to be a little bit further along. And so, yes, by the time I was coming up on that November event, because we set all this up in March, by the time I was coming up on that, I was doing a lot more than I had been doing on the front end. But across most of it, I would say there wasn't a real need for me to do more than 5 hours of training. It was only towards the end, I'm like, okay, I have to start upping my stamina and endurance, because this is a 13-mile race with 25 obstacles. And so for most people, this thing is going to take them 3 to 4 hours. So I need to have the stamina to be able to keep going and do all the work for that 3.5, 4 hours. And with my daughter and I, it took us just under 3 hours to finish that race.
Wow. That's amazing. And you were at this age, you were like 48?
I was yes. At this point, I'm 47 years old. I had lost the weight. Quite literally, you could see the almost, if there wasn't loose skin, almost would have been a 6-pack. you know? So, it was just one of those things where
You did that again in how many months? 8 months?
basically I lost all that in 11 months.
11 months. So just shy of a year.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It was, that's not how I recommend most people go at weight loss, because that's, for a lot of folks, that would just not be sustainable. They would finish the race.
There's more than weight loss involved here. There's getting your body conditioned to do a
Oh yeah. Well, again, what I knew is with these obstacles, because this was not just a run, the obstacles were a part of it too. I knew I needed grip strength. I knew I needed overall body strength, and I knew I needed stamina. And of course, I did not want to carry all that excess body weight with me. So losing some of that fat was important.
Yeah, right.
I did the low carb, and from experience, if you are a responder to that, and you're basically your body's doing what it needs to do, you're not truly insulin resistant. That's one of the advantages I had. I was not pre-diabetic at that point. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I wasn't, but I wasn't. So for the low carb diet worked for me because I would respond to it. I could get my blood sugars lower. I could make my body burn fat for energy. And so it worked very well. Now that I've done, I've seen this, people cycling through, where it works less and less and less over time. And a lot of that has to do with insulin resistance, has to do with a lot of other things. But for me, it was an effective way to cut the fat. And I was getting the excess protein I needed because that was most of what I was eating. In fact, I didn't even know I was in ketosis. That was not the plan. I was on a paleo diet. That's what I talked to a nutritionist, and she recommended the paleo diet to me. And so now I'm just eating meat and vegetables. And by that, I mean mostly just cruciferous vegetables and leafy greens. And I ended up in ketosis. I didn't even know what it was. My breath smells like crap. My pee smells like crap. And I'm like, what's going on here? And so I had to look it up and realize I was in ketosis, and started doing research on that. And I'm like, okay, well, it says that if you can smell it on my breath, that's just fat. That's just my body burning fat. So I'm in the right place.
That's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about, so that takes you to 48 years old, but as we were mentioning, maybe off camera, I think you are now 59 years old.
Yeah.
You're 10 years older now. Obviously you haven't kept up that pace that you were at for the Tough Mudder, right?
Right. No.
You're not doing chair yoga. So what does the last 10 years look like?
So the kind of the change for me was realizing, and some of this came about for different reasons. I did a second Tough Mudder with my daughter and her boyfriend. I did a Spartan. I was going to do the Spartan with my brother, but then he had something come up. He couldn't do it. I did it by myself. I tore a rotator cuff training for that Spartan, and I still did it. Even with a torn rotator cuff, which not fun and very painful. But once it's tore, you can't tear it anymore. So, it wasn't like
you were channeling that same guy who
I was closer to that. I was closer to that guy. I was closer to that guy. I was capable. My brother is an EMT firefighter, so he's 15 years younger than me. So the goal was, similar as it was to my daughter, is I want to basically be able to keep up with him and not slow him down. He had invited me to a Ragnar, which is a relay race, like a 150-mile relay race, and get a team of like 5 or so. Each one runs their segment. I had signed up with his team, and then that got canceled because they couldn't get all the permits to run where they wanted to run. So I didn't do the Ragnar with him, which is why I invited him to do the Spartan with me. But all that said, it's like, okay, so injuries and different things. And now again, looking forward to my life, I'm like, okay, my life will change as I age. And I kind of have to accept that a little bit. I don't have to accept it though. So like my grandfather, he played golf, a lot of golf. He loved golf. He was a salesman. And back then that's where they did the deals. They played golf. play a round of golf, and sign the paperwork. There's the deal.
Yep.
And so, but when he turned 80, he had to stop playing golf. Now, a lot of people say, okay, well, he's 80. So yeah, everybody has to hang up their clubs or, their boots or something at some point in their life. But he lived until he was 95.
Wow.
So he lost the thing he loved the most for the last 15 years of his life. Now, you go forward, when he was 90, he was not able to make it from his chair to the bathroom. So if he realized he had to go, he wasn't going to make it. And then he had to call the assisted care desk to send someone up to clean him up, because he couldn't do that either. And that was the last 5 years of his life. And because he was dealing with that, he didn't want anybody in his apartment. So I didn't get to see him the last 5 years of his life. So I look at fitness very different now. And I use a term I call fit for task, which is basically saying, what are the things you know you need to do and you love to do and you're going to want to keep doing? You talked a little bit about coaching your kids and playing baseball and playing, football and rolling around and enjoying time with them. That's important to you. Now, our body ages and sarcopenia and other things happen, and we lose muscle mass, we lose strength, we lose bone density, and we lose the things we love, and we lose the things we need to be able to do. And so I don't want that to happen. So I don't look at it as exercise or working out. I am training. So I'm going to be a grandfather in August. Now, because I'm 59 and a half years older than this kid, eligible to draw off my IRA before he's born, I'm old relative to him. And if he gets married in his 30s, like our daughters did, I'm going to be in my 90s. I want to be able to travel and go see him, get off my little Caribbean island, get on an airplane and fly and go see him, and then see the wedding, be a part of the wedding and not just a spectator. Okay. So that drives a lot of what I do, and the training and what I choose to do for training is really more related around the skills and things that I need for the things in my life today and the things I want to have in my life in the future.
Amazing. And as kind of a plug to what you're doing at 40 Plus Fitness, if somebody is interested in learning more about what that looks like and what that could look like for them, how can they find out more information on that?
Okay. I have a boot camp. It's pretty simple, but you go to 40plusfitness.com/boot camp. Now, the boot camp is for someone that's really just struggling to stick with anything. You're not moving as much as you should. You're not doing what you should. We do a little bit about nutrition in there. We do a little bit about movement, and it's really about just stacking sustainable habits over the course of 28 days. It's a pretty simple process. It's not overbearing, but for someone who's really struggling to get started, this is an excellent way for you to go. You've got daily missions to drive what you're doing for this 28 days, and they all stack. And then there's some measurement that happens so you can actually see the results. It goes beyond, that's it. That's it right there. It goes beyond just saying, okay, I'm on a challenge for 28 days. This really is about building sustainable habits that will get you anything you want out of your health and fitness if you just continue the progress from there.
Great. I think this would be a great start for myself. I think I may look into this for myself. So I'll bookmark that for after we're done chatting here. But so 40 Plus Fitness, and it's just so that everybody who may be listening, spell out the word plus, for the number 40, numeric numbers 40, the word plus fitness.com. And then /
Well, they won't let you use a symbol in a URL, so.
So spell it out. So on to kind of juke topics here for just a minute before I let you go. Obviously, On the Pen is a platform all about obesity and type 2 diabetes. We have a heavy focus on medicine, But, this all started with my own journey, my own personal journey. And we just had a chance to kind of lay that out on your podcast. One of the things that I think is cool about the way that you've approached this is you have a very, disciplined mindset. You've got to do these things if you want to achieve these things, and that's your mindset. A lot of times what happens is these fitness guys will get into that mindset and they think that using anything medically assisted is cheating. You are not that way. Tell me how you sort of came to your own conclusion about medically assisted weight management and how this all kind of comes together to make a bigger picture.
Well, to my knowledge, there is not an Olympic event for weight loss. So you're not competing with anybody. Okay. So anything that enhances your journey, you're not cheating because there's no competition. You're not going to win something. You're going to win your health back. That's what you're going to get. You're going to win your health back. You're going to win your confidence back. You're going to win your life back. Okay. So if this helps you get there, then please. I've coached thousands of people over the years, and I realized, and it was kind of one of those weird epiphanies, because you're thinking, okay, I gutted it out. Everybody can gut it out. And then I realized, no, they can't. We're all wired different. We're all a little different. We all do the things we do for somewhat different reasons. And we're all biochemically totally different. And so for me to think I know better, I can tell you the law of thermodynamics is actually true. The problem is getting there, finding those numbers, getting those things done, because your body's not functioning the way that it needs to function. So if you need this sort of help, please get it. This is too important to play semantics about stuff. Okay. Now, a lot of folks in my industry, you'll go on, I'll see this, and I hate this. I hate this. So if you hear this, just ignore these guys because they don't know what they're talking about. But they'll say you just need to be disciplined, right? You'll hear that word a lot. You just need to be disciplined. Well, discipline, if you look up the word in a dictionary, is punishment. You do not need to be punished. Okay. What those guys forget is that there's a process for motivation. Okay. Typically it starts with accountability, and then you begin to develop self-efficacy until you identify as that person. So you think about someone who decides, I'm going to start walking for 30 minutes. And they start walking for 30 minutes a few times a week. And then they go ahead and they start putting a little jog in there, make it a little harder. And now they're jogging more than they're walking. And they and a friend maybe decide to do a 5K. They do their first 5K. They get the t-shirt. It was so much fun. They sign up for another. And now they're buying the shoes, and now they're buying the tops. And eventually they just get up in the morning and go for a run because they're runners. Okay. That's how motivation actually happens. You start out with some help, and you get to a point where you identify as a different human being. And it's a process. What the guys that say you need discipline don't remember is they did this when they were 14. They walked into a gym. There was some old dude there with a bunch of muscles. They started listening to him. They started doing the thing. They learned the skills. And then they identified as a gym rat. They identified as the guy who does this. And so now they just think that's discipline, but they don't realize they built that identity. And you, where you are now, have to build the identity. I am not my obesity. I am not the fat kid I was. Remember, my rearview mirror was an athlete, and I had to fight that guy to keep from breaking myself. Well, a lot of people look back and say, well, I was the overweight, chunky kid that never got picked for sports. Therefore, I'm bad at these things. Okay. You're not that kid anymore. You're in this seat. Look out that windshield.
Yeah.
Okay. But realize if you need a little bit of help, get a little bit of help. If you need a coach, get a coach. Those are the best investments that you can make because they're pushing you forward to a more healthy, vibrant life. And so screw them if they think you're cheating. It doesn't matter. This is your life. Take charge. Use what you've got to use. Get the job done. It's not a competition. The Olympic Committee is not going to come after you, kick you out. I'm sorry, those 66 pounds don't count.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. I love it, and I think your approach is very balanced, and I think that's what so much is missing in this industry. We'll call it, right, the fitness industry, the weight loss industry. Everything is so extreme. Everything is just not balanced. And
well, a lot, like I said, a lot of folks in this industry never had to deal with obesity. Okay, it's just the truth. They were always thin. They always had the six pack. They always looked that way. And now they're going to tell you how to get a six pack when you're in your 60s. Well, do you know how you get a six pack when you're 60s? You have a six pack in your 20s. You have a six pack in your 30s. You have a six pack in your 40s. You have a six pack in your 50s. And if you keep going, you have a six pack in your 60s. That's how you get a six pack in your 60s, not some workout program they're selling on YouTube.
Right.
So, get there the way you need to get there, get the help you need, make the investments that you need to make so you can have the life that you deserve, period.
Yeah. And having having that, I like having that that sort of picture in mind of what you want in the future. What for me at 40, what do I want at 50? At 50, what do you want?
Kids, they're going to graduate high school. They're going to get married. They're going to have your grandkids. You're going to be in your 60s. You're going to be close to 60 when you have your first grandkid.
Yeah.
What kind of grandpa do you want to be?
Yeah, I love it. Great things to ponder. I love your approach, Allan. Again, if you are interested in getting more from Allan, you're going to go to 40plusfitness.com. You also have a podcast with the same name, right? 40 Plus Fitness.
Yeah.
Anywhere else where you would direct people to find more of what you got, Allan?
That's the central hub. You're gonna find just about everything there. If you're interested in the mindset stuff we talked about, you could take a quiz. It takes about a minute. Doesn't cost anything. That's 40plusfitness.com/quiz. So that'll talk you through that mindset stuff. And if you just want to kind of get an assessment of how you're aging right now, your what I call long life readiness score, you can go to 40plusfitness.com/fit and take that quiz. It takes a little bit longer, but each of these are going to give you some support and some understanding of where you stand now and give you some tools to move forward.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Allan, for spending some time with us today and sharing some of your wisdom. I hope that many people will go check out what you've got at 40 Plus Fitness. And it's been a pleasure to meet you. And I'll definitely be looking into the boot camp here. I think that's a very intriguing concept, and I love your approach.
Thank you, Dave. Looking forward to working with you there.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
You too.
Allan Misner, Coach Allan Misner. I hope you'll check him out at 40plusfitness.com. You can check out more about what he's doing over at 40 Plus Fitness. I love it as somebody who's freshly 40 myself. Just some interesting things to ponder and think about. What kind of life do I want at 50 and 60 and beyond? And so learn more at 40plusfitness.com. I also want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Row. Row is the company that allows us to continue to do what we're doing here at On the Pen. And you should check out the Row Body program. If GLP-1s may be something that you think could help you along in your journey, you're going to want to look no farther than row.co/OTP, where you can learn more about medically assisted weight loss and weight management. Row.co/OTP will also give you more information within a couple clicks about any potential side effects that you could face with these medications. But patients lose 15 to 20% of their body weight in a year on the Row Body program. Of course, when you couple it with something like Coach Allan is doing, I think a really holistic approach might be something to look at for you. So visit row.co/OTP to learn more about the Row Body program.